What do you know about UFOs? And how much do you believe is actual, let's say, national security style propaganda or otherwise? And what are the possibilities that there's something else happening? Meaning that, we talk about dimensional entities. We talk about, these crash retrieval programs that David Grush has come out about recently, and, back to Bob Lazar in 1989. Do you believe any of this stuff? And look, I have a hard time believing it, to be perfectly honest. And I'll tell you why. A couple things. Now, here's the weird part about me. I'm a complicated cat, but I have less trouble believing in sort of, I don't know, dimensional entities or something, something beyond the veil. Less trouble believing that than I do, I don't know, like this crack team of professors and physicists and whatever scientists coming out of the government and and journalists and tonight it gets really weird because we'll go to again episode 2091 from the Joe Rogan podcast with Diana Pasulka. So let's just play the clip. Let's play the first clip here, and you'll start to see why this gets incredibly weird, incredibly fast. So she got recruited to go with this individual, and this is from her book American Cosmic. Is that what it's called? I think so. I'll pull that up in a sec and get that right for you. But okay, so in her original book, she wrote about this experience, and this is her actually doing. Explaining. Okay, so there's this guy Tyler that she named Tyler because this individual works for the government, is supposedly read in on some of these top secret details of UFOs and things like this. And Gary Nolan, of course, we famous Stanford immunologist, I believe is what he is, and he does study UFOs as kind of a part-time hobby sort of thing. And then, of course, Diana Pasulka ended up kind of invited into this sort of UFO excursion where they went to New Mexico, and not Roswell, but some other UFO crash space in New Mexico. And they were digging in the dirt, basically. They were doing, I don't know, like a cosmic archaeology in terms of, pulling up crash retrieval type of things. But better to hear it in her own words. Just going to play a couple clips so we don't tread on the copyright type stuff. But this is what she said. This is straight from that Joe Rogan podcast. Links in the description if you want to check out the whole thing in its entirety. Of course, after this show, I would appreciate that. But listen to this. This is exactly how she described it. They blindfolded them and took them out to this crash site in New Mexico that was not Roswell. And they were out there literally searching for metamaterials, for UFO remnants, for who knows what. And so listen to this. This is part one. Let's put this on and let's hear what Diana had to say about the experience.
We're blindfolded. We get out to the site. We get out. We're wearing like I guess there's rattlesnakes out there, and so we have to wear certain boots and things like that. So we get out. We take our blindfolds off. And the first thing I do is I look around because it looks really familiar to me, even though I've never been out there. And Tyler looked at me and he said, "Looks familiar, doesn't it?" And I said, yeah. And he said, it's you've seen it in the X-Files. And I was like, what? He goes, they had an insider on their team. And I honestly thought, okay, this actually fits into my research that, we learn everything we do about religion from media. Like you want to know what, Moses looked like, you just watch, the Ten Commandments and things like that. Like it's not true, of course, but that's how most people learn about their religions.
Which is funny. You learn about your religions from watching television, right? Which probably explains a lot in, let's say, modern terms. Okay, but this gets even more weird because she's out there again. They blindfolded them to take them out to this super secret spot, and they get out there and they are searching in the dirt amongst rattlesnakes, supposedly and apparently, and they're searching for metamaterials for these crashed UFOs. Okay, now if that doesn't sound wild enough to you, well, it gets better because notice she mentioned the X-Files. And there was an insider working on the X-Files team, okay? And that's the weird part to me. One of the really, really massively bizarre parts of this conversation, because look, we've talked about sort of the revelation of the method, that type of like magical aspect of the, conceptual ritual magic. We talked about predictive programming, where this stuff kind of gets put out on television as maybe a slow drip disclosure. And, I've had shout out Ash, the reptilian. He said to me, you know what? He said, Mike, I've been rewatching the X-Files. He said this about 6 or 8 months ago, rewatching the X-Files. And I think that disclosure actually happened on this television show, on this actual show. Like they gave us everything we needed to know. It was all there. And it kind of feels to me like there was somebody on the inside feeding them information to create these episodes. Well, it turns out that in this conversation with Joe Rogan and Diana Pasulka, she says exactly that. And there's, if you guys remember, I think it's unclear exactly which part you would recognize, but when you watch the X-Files episodes, there's like this one sort of collage of images. I can't remember if it happens at the beginning or the end of the episode. Maybe you guys can help me if you remember what this is. But there's this one particular scene, and I think this is what we're talking about. It was kind of like this sort of maybe mesa or, sort of gently rolling hillside, the slope in the desert somewhere. And it kind of flashes and it kind of goes discolored a little bit. And then it flashes to another scene. And it is, part of the either opening intro or kind of closing crawl of the X-Files episodes. Okay. But the weird part is that I think this is what we're talking about. And so let's add this to the questions of why in the hell would this be the case? Meaning specifically that if we have a government insider working for the X-Files team and with Chris Carter, presumably the creator and, writer of many of those episodes of X-Files, that if we have that situation happening, like what is this sort of slow drip disclosure actually possible in that context? It seems strange to me that this could be maybe, a good solid maybe. And as usual, look, like I said, it's difficult to kind of untangle the characters from like the ufology and the UFO mythology and the folklore and all the rest, right? And even the possibility of aliens. And, that's quite a bit more fun to me to speculate in that larger cosmic sense, as you guys well know if you've been listening for any amount of time, than to talk about personalities. I think, people are great, right? We know that. So let's not talk about personalities. Let's talk about ideas. And that's really kind of been one of the backbones of what Troubled Minds is. But once you get these individuals kind of putting their neck out a little bit that are, serious people with credentials, with PhDs, with, things to lose, let's say, it's strange to me that it turns out that there's a possibility that this stuff might be real because these people are kind of sticking their neck out. Are we live on Rumble? What the hell's going on? Is something broken over there? Maybe broken. I don't know. Maybe we didn't show up one day and then nothing happened. I think we're good. Anyway, all right. So just checking to make sure everything's working because as you noticed, there's new audio and everything's new to me. So I've got new buttons and new everything. So I just want to make sure everything's working. But anyway, so pretty strange. And then, okay, so the X-Files part is odd, sort of that, maybe slow drip disclosure through this predictive programming. Is this real? Do you think this is a real thing? And then it gets even more weird than that. Let's see. What do we got? We got a message here. Yep. What is this? Oh, okay. All right. I thought that was an audio feedback. Okay. Anyway. So, all right. So that's what we're talking about. Diana Pasulka gets dragged out to, or, not dragged out, not like she was kidnapped. She went of her own free will and out there with Gary Nolan and this anonymous individual by the name of Tyler from her book, American Cosmic. I believe that's the name of the book. Like I said, I'll get you the name in a sec. But the thing is this, so they're out there blindfolded now, very much like you guys saw Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull. You notice how they put him in a bus with a bunch of scientists and, blacked out the windows and drove them out to the Roswell crash. I mean, we're mirroring this actual sort of fictional type accounts of these situations, which is just incredibly bizarre to me. But as she says in that clip there, that we're learning our religion from watching television, from watching, depictions of the ancient religious days. But okay, so it gets even more weird. Clip 2. This is her continuing on about this. So we'll get back to the X-Files bit because I think it's incredibly fascinating and why they would put sort of an actual UFO crash site as part of the imagery in the X-Files episode seemed absolutely strange to me. It gets even more weird. Listen to this. This is part 2. These are the only 2 clips I got. I didn't peel out a lot, but there's a whole bunch more in terms of what they said and discussed in this, including, of course, the idea of these UFO crashes as donation sites. So we'll get to that tonight as well. But listen to this, part 2, and then we got some other stuff to talk about and consider, of course. Here we go. More clip 2, Diana Pasulka on the Joe Rogan podcast, episode 2091, and action.
The whole site is covered with rubble that looks like rusted rubble, and it's not sand. So there's the sand of the desert, right? And then there's this rubble everywhere. And I'm stepping on the rubble and I'm kind of looking at it. And
how big are these pieces?
Well, this is all just like less
gravel?
than sand. Yeah, it's like gravel. It's like, and so I asked Tyler, what's this? And he said that after the government retrieved the crash and they didn't want anyone out here looking. So what they did was they dropped a bunch of tin cans out here in the 1950s, and these have disintegrated down into this rubble. And so I put that in my book because that's what he said. And when I put that in my book, the editor of my book said to me, "You can't say this because it's ridiculous." And at the time I was like, It is ridiculous, but this is what happened, and it's data. And even though we don't understand it now and it seems ridiculous, we need to keep it in there.
Which she did, of course, kept it in the book. And again, it's kind of been, dare I say, that we would, not have heard, the general public would not have heard of Diana Pasulka. No offense. There's a lot of, very intelligent college professors out there that many people have really never heard of. I mean, in the public sphere. But since she started studying UFOs, now she's sort of been cast into the limelight of sorts. And it means a lot of things, a lot of really interesting sort of implications in this regard. But I don't know. Basically, let's add that to a layer of questioning here. Like, how much of this is that layer or level of propaganda, and how come particular people kind of get roped into this? As sort of maybe the insider club of the UFO. What would you say? Like, I don't even know how you would describe it. Just the insider club. I guess that's the best way to put it. And how do you get roped up into that? Yeah. Let's see. No Rumble. Okay. Yeah. What the hell's going on with it? May be that thing again. Hold on. Let me check. I'll check during the break and we'll see if we can fix Rumble up. Sorry about that. I wonder why there was nobody over there. That's usually a pretty raucous crowd. Shout out Rumble crowd leaking over to YouTube. But yeah. Okay. So a lot of ways to look at this. And then of course, here's one, and this is linked down in the description down below. And I encourage you to read this and follow all the rest of this stuff because it's absolutely amazing. This is from UFO Joe. And again, I know some people are like, nah, come on, Joe doesn't know what he's talking about. But this is the thing with Joe to me. Like I said, he has been on the show a couple times. He has called in a couple times, a couple other times. And like, to me, it's incredibly fascinating because he pays very, very close attention to the new information that comes out. And he's got this catalog on his website. It's called ufojoe.net. I encourage you to check it out if you're into transcriptions, because notice there's a lot of podcasts and a lot of sort of this type of thing that happens in just in conversations that don't really get just broken down into articles, right? Easily searchable, this type of thing. You have to go, put on some headphones and, fire up the dishes or the garden, go outside and start gardening, or, go on a long drive to listen to a long podcast. I mean, it's what we do too. It's difficult to really parse all this information, including, of course, let's say in the sense of troubled minds, we get callers. And so there's the wild part about that is, say we're looking for a particular something that somebody said in a call. I couldn't begin to tell you when that episode was or what it called about, because we range so far and so wide in many of these conversations. We may start out on UFOs and end up in time travel or something like this. And so it's really difficult to kind of, again, catalog the information that comes out of these conversations. Same thing goes with all the podcasts and everything else. But Joe does a really good job, at the UFO Joe on Twitter, of actually making transcriptions of these things. He spends tons of time and puts this stuff on his blog specifically for that reason. So there's a catalog of where this information came from. He sources it back to, of course, the original podcast and things. Anyway, so enough about UFO Joe. Do follow his Twitter at the UFO Joe. Do follow his website. Go check it out, ufojoe.net. He writes this, and this is incredibly important to the conversation. He says, did Nolan, Pasulka, and Taylor, and again, Taylor, or was it, no, what's the guy's name? Anyway, find and hold a piece of memory metal similar to what was allegedly found at Roswell. And she talks about this in the actual Joe Rogan episode 2091. He says, I really enjoyed D.W. Pasulka's appearance on Joe Rogan. However, I have a few questions that I hope can be answered. Below is Diana on Rogan talking about a piece of material she says was found at an alleged crash donation site in New Mexico, which we're going to get to, the donation sites, with Gary Nolan and Timothy Taylor. Is that the guy that it actually came out as Tim Taylor? Okay, anyway, so I didn't realize that the guy Tyler had been outed as Timothy Taylor. Anyway, so Pasulka said this, quote, the actual frog skin type thing, it's malleable, and you can crunch it up and it'll go back to its original form. Rogan mentions the Roswell material Jesse Marcel Jr. spoke about that would allegedly do the same thing. Pasulka adds, quote, I don't know if it was the same material, but yes, it was like that. And so the plot thickens a little bit because actually we'll get to that. I'll get back to that. But it is strange that the entire thing, it really echoes back to that original Roswell crash. And they aren't there in this space. They're in New Mexico at some other Roswell or not Roswell style or type UFO crash. And if you guys are knowledgeable about the UFO lore, that seems to be where a bunch of them happened in sort of short succession right around 1947, right after Roswell and during that week. So it becomes like, why? Like why? It's one of the questions of the ages of, you can fly all the way across the galaxy or whatever, dimensional space, and then you get to New Mexico and you just crash. But not just crash once, crash a bunch of times. It is, confounding to consider that this is what's happening or did happen. And again, if you believe that or don't believe that, that's okay. This is, drinking the maybe juice, as I always say, and there's no truth to be found here, just ideas and concepts. And is this stuff possible? It's like a Marvel's What If, except we're just doing it with our universe. And is it possible that there were multiple crashes, actual UFO crashes, or even donation sites, as they're being called, which is incredibly weird, which we'll get to as part of the other part of this discussion tonight. Donations of what in particular? And why are they calling them these things? And it's just so strange to me that a lot of this does kind of go back to Philip Corso, the day after Roswell. A lot of it goes back to some other places. What's up? I see you guys over there on Rockfin. So Rockfin is working. Rumble is broken. So I'll try and fix that during the break. Good to know. But anyway, so a lot of really weird stuff. Again, the memory metal. We've heard this from Roswell, where they supposedly were picking up these pieces of things, and they would crumple the metal, and then it would go back to its original form, the malleability bit. And shit, Diana described a piece they found, again, a very Roswell-esque piece of metamaterial they found that you could crumple up and would go back to its own original, shape, which is bizarre, which is wild, which is like, what the hell? I mean, very, kind of tinfoil hatty type of thing, except this tinfoil hat, when you crumple it up, just goes right back to the tinfoil hat, which is incredible. But yeah, so wild stuff. And again, if you guys heard this, the entire podcast, Joe Rogan, 2091, Diana Pasulka was on it. It's there's a lot there. And not just with, again, the X-Files bit, which seems incredibly strange to me that they would put this out there for everybody to know about. At least, wink, wink. Oh, here's a real UFO crash, guys, on your favorite, UFO TV show. I mean, that seems like, what are you doing? Like, isn't that, I don't know, dangerous or I don't know. It just seems like, national security wise, that's not the type of stuff you would do. Just kind of like wink, wink, ha ha. Here's a nice little clip of where a real UFO actually crashed and where the government knew and, all the rest. So, and as they said, sprinkled some tin cans over the spot to kind of hide the fact that there was something that had crashed there a long time ago. All this weirdness of not just this, I'm calling this conditional advancement. And what I mean, of course, is that if these are some sort of donation sites, from whom? This becomes the next batch of questions, right? Like, who is giving us this material? And look, it has been stated in the past, speculatively, and I don't know that this claim has been directly made it has, but I don't know by who, let's say. That's probably the better way to put it. But here's the thing. If we're actually getting this information from some other entities, what the hell are they? And what the hell's happening with it? That's what I want to know, because it is the most wild thing about this is that, okay, so maybe, just maybe, we have a situation going on where we're being gifted technology. And people have suggested that, after 1947, we had all kinds of technology kind of come online and all the rest, and, into the past the vacuum tube age, into the what is it, the processors or whatever the hell we're using now. I mean, so is this, some people have said it's alien technology. And look, I'm not sure I want to go that far personally, but hey, let's talk about it conceptually, because that's exactly what this is about. So let me smash a button here and do the thing. I think, let's see if that one's that, this one's this. I think let's press a button. See what happens. Hey, that's it. All right, so that's what's happening tonight. I don't really know the answers here, but I do know that this information kind of coming out seems to be really, really tightly packaged with some older ideas, and of course, resurfacing in some interesting and wild ways. Why on earth would they show us an actual crash site as part of the UFO lore of X-Files? But then also in the same sense, why are we still talking about metamaterials crumpling and, kind of unfolding and the rest back to Roswell? And what the hell is up with this donation sites?